The bridge of the Indomitable was quiet except for the soft hum of instruments. Captain Elena Vasquez sat in her command chair, watching the stars drift past on the main screen. Her fleet of 5 human warships had been patrolling this empty sector of space for 3 weeks now. Nothing ever happened out here on the edge of Council territory. She took a sip of cold coffee and made a face. Her second officer, Commander Zhao, stood at the tactical station running another drill. The crew was getting bored. Vasquez could see it in their faces. They had joined Earth's first military fleet expecting adventure, but mostly they just watched empty space. The communications officer, Lieutenant Park, suddenly sat up straight at her station. Her hands moved quickly across her controls. Vasquez noticed the change immediately. "Captain, I'm picking up something," Park said. Her voice was tense. "It's a distress signal. Multiple ships." "The signature is Centauri." Vasquez leaned forward. The Centauri were one of the peaceful species in the Galactic Council. They looked like tall, thin birds with delicate features. Their homeworld had light gravity and no dangerous predators. They were scholars and artists, not fighters. "Put it on speaker," Vasquez ordered. Static filled the bridge, then a panicked voice came through. The translator struggled to keep up with the rapid speech. "This is the Centauri transport Gentle Wind. We are under attack. 17 civilian ships, 8,000 refugees. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help. They are killing us." The Krell Dominion. The transmission ended with a burst of weapons fire and screaming. The bridge went silent. Every crew member had stopped what they were doing. Vasquez felt her chest tighten. She knew that sound. She had heard it before 5 years ago when she had been too late to save a colony transport. "Location," she snapped. 23 light years, Zhao replied. "It would take us 40 minutes at maximum FTL. Scan for hostiles. Detecting 6 large warships. Krell signatures. They're hunting the convoy through an asteroid field." Vasquez stood up. The Krell Dominion was known across the galaxy as slavers and raiders. They captured weaker species and sold them. The Galactic Council had complained about them for years but never actually did anything. Politics always got in the way. "Get me Earth Command," Vasquez said. It took 3 minutes for the connection to reach across the light years. Admiral Kowalski's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired. He always looked tired these days. "Captain Vasquez, what's the situation?" "Sir, we've received a distress call from Centauri civilians. They're being attacked by Krell raiders. Request permission to intervene." Kowalski sighed and rubbed his face. "What's your current position?" "We're 40 minutes out. We could reach them in time." "Captain, you know the Council's position on this. The Krell situation is considered an internal matter. We're not supposed to interfere." Vasquez felt anger rising in her chest. "Sir, they're killing civilians, refugees." "I understand, Captain. But we've been members of the Council for 50 years now. We can't just ignore their laws when it suits us. The political situation is delicate. If we intervene, it could cause problems for Earth. With respect, sir, I don't give a damn about politics right now. There are 8,000 people about to die." Kowalski was quiet for a moment. "My hands are tied, Elena. The order comes from the top. You are to observe only. Do not engage." "That's a direct order." The screen went dark. Vasquez stared at it, her jaw clenched. Around the bridge, her crew waited to see what she would do. Dr. Kellen, the Centauri liaison assigned to the Indomitable, stepped forward from where he had been standing near the back of the bridge. His feathers were ruffled with stress. His large eyes were wet. "Captain," he said quietly, "those ships are carrying children, families. They left their homes because the Krell invaded their system. They have nowhere else to go." Vasquez looked at him. She thought about the screaming she had heard on that transmission. She thought about the 5 years of nightmares she still had about the colony ship she had failed to save. She thought about why she had joined the military in the first place. She turned to her crew. They were all watching her. Young faces. Hopeful faces. They trusted her to make the right choice. "Lieutenant Park, are we still receiving the distress call?" "Yes, Captain." "It's getting weaker, though." "They're losing ships." Vasquez walked to the front of the bridge and stared at the main screen. The stars looked cold and distant. Somewhere out there, people were dying while she stood here doing nothing. She had always believed that being human meant something. Earth was a harsh world. Heavy gravity, dangerous animals, violent weather. Humans had evolved to survive in hell. Other species called Earth a Class 12 death world, the highest danger rating in the galaxy. They said humans were too aggressive, too violent, too dangerous. Maybe they were right. Vasquez made her decision. She felt calm settle over her like a blanket. Helm, set intercept course. Maximum FTL speed. The helmsman hesitated. Captain, the admiral said. I heard what he said. I'm choosing to ignore it. Set the course. The young man smiled. Yes, ma'am. Commander Zhao stepped up beside her. They'll court-martial you for this. Probably, Vasquez agreed. Are you with me? Zhao didn't hesitate. Always, Captain. Vasquez raised her voice so everyone could hear. Listen up. We're about to break council law. We're about to disobey direct orders from Earth Command. Anyone who wants to object can do so now, and it will be noted in the log. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved to object. Good, Vasquez said. Then let's go remind the Krell why humans are called Deathworlders. Battle stations. All ships in the fleet follow our lead. We're going to war. The Indomitable jumped to FTL speed and the stars stretched into lines around them. The human fleet dropped out of FTL space in a flash of blue light. 5 warships appeared between the Krell raiders and the fleeing Centauri convoy. The Indomitable led the formation, with 2 destroyers and 2 frigates flanking it on both sides. On the main screen, Vasquez could see the Centauri ships. They were beautiful vessels, all curves and elegant lines, but they were burning. 3 were already dead in space, their hulls torn open. The survivors were trying to hide in an asteroid field, while 6 large Krell warships hunted them like predators stalking prey. Open a channel to the Krell command ship, Vasquez ordered. The screen flickered and a Krell face appeared. Lord Vraxus was a massive creature, nearly 8 feet tall even sitting down. His skin was dark gray and covered in thick plates. 4 arms crossed over his broad chest. His eyes were small and cruel. Who dares interrupt Krell business? He demanded. His voice was deep and rough. I am Captain Elena Vasquez of the Earth vessel Indomitable. You are attacking civilian ships. Stand down immediately and withdraw. Vraxus laughed. It sounded like rocks grinding together. Human. I have heard of your species. You are merchants and diplomats, yes? You talk and trade. You do not fight. You heard wrong, Vasquez said coldly. This sector now belongs to the Krell Dominion. These Centauri are our property. Leave now, little human, or we will add your ships to our collection. Vasquez smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I'm going to give you one chance. Turn around and leave. If you don't, we will destroy you. Vraxus stared at her for a moment, then laughed again. Several other Krell officers behind him joined in. They thought she was joking. You have 5 small ships. I have 6 warships, each twice the size of yours. Your threats are amusing but meaningless. I will give you one chance, human. Run away. I will even let you live as a reward for making me laugh. Wrong answer, Vasquez said and cut the transmission. She turned to Zhao. Are we ready? All ships report battle ready. Weapons armed. Shields at maximum. Point defense systems online. Good. Target the Krell cruiser on their right flank. Prepare a full broadside. Let's show them what human weapons can do. On the Krell flagship, Vraxus was still chuckling. He had fought many species over his long career. They all used the same tactics. Energy shields to protect their ships. Long-range plasma weapons that fired slowly but looked impressive. Battles were usually decided by who had more ships or better shields. It was almost civilized. My lord, one of his officers said, the human ships are moving into attack position. Let them come. Fire warning shots across their bow. Perhaps that will scare them away. 2 of the Krell warships fired. Brilliant red plasma bolts streaked across space toward the human fleet. They were aimed to miss by several hundred meters. A warning. Vasquez watched the plasma fire pass harmlessly by her ships. Their turn is over. Now it's ours. All ships open fire. The Indomitable's main railgun spoke. There was no sound in space, but everyone on the bridge felt the vibration through the deck as the massive weapons launched. Tungsten slugs, each weighing 500 kilograms, accelerated to 3% of light speed. Behind the main guns, missile tubes opened and dozens of weapons launched. The other human ships fired as well. The space between the 2 fleets filled with projectiles moving at incredible speeds. Vraxus watched his sensors and frowned. What are they firing? I don't see plasma signatures. Unknown, my lord. Solid projectiles of some kind. Moving very fast. They'll impact in 3 seconds. Raise shields. Those primitive weapons can't... The first railgun slug hit the Krell cruiser's shields. Energy shields were designed to disperse plasma and energy weapons. They were not designed to stop solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The shield flashed once and collapsed. The tungsten slug punched through the cruiser's armor like paper and tore through the entire length of the ship. The cruiser exploded from the inside out. Pieces of hull and internal structure scattered across space. One moment it was there. The next moment it was debris. The other Krell ships barely had time to process what happened before the missile swarm arrived. Human missiles used a combination of tactics. Some were kinetic, some were nuclear. Some were designed to release clouds of small pellets that shredded anything they touched. The Krell shields flickered and failed under the onslaught. 2 more Krell warships took heavy damage. Their armor was tough, but it was meant to resist energy weapons. Kinetic impacts were different. Metal tore. Systems failed. Fires started in the oxygen-rich atmosphere inside the ships. On the Krell flagship, Vraxis stared at his screens in shock. In less than 10 seconds, he had lost 1 ship completely and 2 more were badly damaged. How is this possible? "Return fire," he roared. "All ships target the human flagship. Maximum firepower." The Krell warships turned and fired. Plasma bolts filled space with red light. The Indomitable's shields absorbed the first few hits, then started to fail. But human ships were designed differently than other Council vessels. They had thick armor plating under the shields. Layers of ceramic and metal designed to handle heat and impact. "Shields down to 40%, Zhao reported calmly. "Hull armor holding. Minor damage to sections 7 and 9. "Keep firing," Vasquez ordered. "Helm, bring us around for another pass." Pattern Delta. The human ships moved in ways the Krell had never seen before. They didn't line up politely and trade fire. They swooped and spun, using their engines at full power. They spread out, attacking from multiple angles. They coordinated their fire, with all 5 ships targeting the same enemy vessel at once. More importantly, they moved fast. Human engines were powerful, because humans came from a high-gravity world. They had built their technology to overcome Earth's harsh pull. In space, that meant incredible acceleration. The human fighters launched. Small, nimble craft poured out of the Indomitable's hangar bay. They were so fast the Krell point defense systems couldn't track them. The fighters swarmed around the damaged Krell ships like angry wasps, firing missiles and cannon rounds into exposed sections. Inside the fighters, human pilots pulled maneuvers that would kill most species. 12 G-turns, sudden stops and reversals. The pilots' bodies were pushed to their limits, but they were trained for this. Humans could handle acceleration that would make other species pass out or die. "My lord," a Krell officer shouted over the sound of alarms. "We're being overwhelmed. Their tactics are unlike anything we've encountered. We need reinforcements." Vraxis's pride was wounded, but he wasn't stupid. He had underestimated these humans badly. "Send the call. All Krell ships in nearby sectors respond immediately. We need support now." He looked at the tactical display. Another of his cruisers was disabled, drifting and venting atmosphere. His fleet was being taken apart by these Deathworld savages. The stories were true then. Humans were dangerous. On the Indomitable, Vasquez watched as her fleet pressed the attack. The Centauri convoy was escaping now, moving away from the battle. That was good. That was why they were here. "Captain," Park said, "the Krell are calling for reinforcements. I'm detecting FTL signatures. Multiple ships incoming." Vasquez felt her stomach sink. "How many?" 12 ships. Heavier class than what we're fighting now. They'll be here in 4 minutes. Zhao turned to look at her. "We're outnumbered now, Captain. We should consider withdrawal." Vasquez looked at the screen. The Centauri ships were still visible, still vulnerable. If the humans ran now, the Krell would just chase them down and finish what they started. She thought about the distress call. The screaming. "The children!" "No," she said firmly. "We hold this line. Nobody gets past us. Those civilians are getting away and we're going to buy them all the time they need." Zhao smiled. "Then let's make these next 4 minutes count. All ships," Vasquez broadcast. "Reinforcements are coming. We're staying. Let's destroy as many of these bastards as we can before their friends arrive." The human fleet pressed forward, guns blazing, into the face of certain death. The Krell reinforcements arrived in a wave of distorted space. 12 massive warships dropped out of FTL and immediately moved to support Vraxis's battered fleet. The human forces were now facing 18 enemy vessels, and 3 of the original 6 were still combat-capable despite their damage. Captain Vasquez studied the tactical display. Her fleet had already taken losses. 1 frigate was destroyed, torn apart by concentrated Krell fire. Another frigate and one destroyer were badly damaged, their crews working desperately to keep systems online. The Indomitable itself had taken dozens of hits. Fires burned in 3 sections and the medical bay was overwhelmed with wounded. "They're surrounding us," Zhao said quietly. "Classic Krell pincer formation. They'll try to catch us in crossfire. Then we don't stay still," Vasquez replied. "Order all ships to scatter. Attack pattern Gamma. We keep moving, keep them confused. Target their command ships first." The human fleet broke formation, each ship moving independently but with purpose. This was something the Krell didn't understand. Other Council species fought in rigid formations following predictable patterns. Humans had learned warfare through thousands of years of constant conflict on Earth. They knew how to adapt. The destroyer Relentless charged straight at a Krell battleship, firing its railguns continuously. The battleship's captain expected the human ship to break away at the last moment. That was what any sane commander would do. Instead, the Relentless kept coming. At the last second, it released a full spread of nuclear missiles at point-blank range and rolled hard to the side. The missiles impacted before the Krell could react. Nuclear fire bloomed against the battleship's hull. Shields overloaded, armor melted. The massive ship listed to one side, engines failing. Inside the Relentless, the crew was being thrown around by the violent maneuver. The ship's hull groaned under the stress, but they had survived, and they had crippled a ship 3 times their size. "Crazy humans," the Krell fleet commander muttered from his flagship. He had been warned about Deathworlders, but seeing it was different. These humans fought like they were already dead. No fear, no hesitation, just pure aggression. On the Indomitable, alarms blared constantly. A plasma bolt had penetrated the armor on Deck 4, and the section was being evacuated. The shield generators were running at critical levels. The main railgun's capacitors were overheating. "Captain, we can't keep this up much longer," Zhao said. His face was covered in sweat. "We're taking too much damage." Vasquez knew he was right. But the Centauri convoy was still within sensor range. If the humans broke off now, the Krell would pursue them. How long until the civilians are safe? They need another 8 minutes to reach the FTL jump point. Then we fight for 8 more minutes. A message came through from the damaged destroyer Vigilant. Its captain's voice was strained. "Indomitable, this is Captain Rodriguez. We've lost engines and weapons. We're drifting." Vasquez felt her chest tighten. "Rodriguez, get your people to the escape pods." "Negative, Captain. We still have 1 working missile tube and attitude thrusters. We can still be useful." "Miguel, don't..." "It's been an honor, Captain." Vigilant out. On the tactical display, Vasquez watched as the crippled destroyer used its thrusters to point itself at the nearest Krell battleship. Then it began to accelerate, using emergency power to push its dead engines beyond their limits. The ship picked up speed, heading straight for the enemy vessel like a massive missile. The Krell battleship tried to maneuver away, but it was too big and too slow. The Vigilant crashed into its side at tremendous velocity. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire and debris. 200 human crew members died in that moment, taking 1,000 Krell with them. The bridge of the Indomitable was silent. Vasquez closed her eyes for a moment, honoring their sacrifice. Then she opened them and turned back to the battle. "They bought us time," she said quietly. "Let's make it count. Target the Krell flagship. I want Vraxis to know he picked the wrong prey." The human fighters were still in the fight, though their numbers had dropped. Lieutenant Sarah Chen led her squadron through a gap in the Krell formation. Her fighters shook as point defense fire streaked past her canopy. She ignored it, focusing on her target. A Krell cruiser's engine section. "Fox 3, she called out, launching her last missile. It struck home, and the cruiser's main engine exploded. The ship began to spin out of control. "Good kill, Lieutenant," her wingman said. "Now let's get out of here before..." His fighter vanished in a flash of light, struck by a lucky plasma shot. Chen felt rage and grief mix in her chest. She had known him since basic training. They had promised to get drinks after this mission. She turned her fighter toward the enemy, accelerating hard. Her body pressed into the seat as she pulled 7 Gs. Blood vessels in her eyes burst from the pressure, but she kept her hands steady on the controls. The Krell didn't know what humans could endure. Meanwhile, Sergeant Maria Torres and her Marine squad were preparing for something most species considered insane. The Indomitable had maneuvered close to a damaged Krell cruiser. "Close enough to board. Remember your training," Torres told her squad over the radio. "Krell are big and strong, but they're slow. Use that hidden move. Don't let them grab you. The boarding pod launched from the Indomitable's side, accelerating toward the Krell ship. Inside, Torres and her 20 Marines checked their weapons one last time. They wore powered armor that enhanced their already considerable strength. Each carried a rifle, a sidearm, and a knife. The knife was important. Torres had learned that in her last boarding action. When you got close to a Krell, sometimes only a blade would work. The pod hit the Krell hull and attached itself with magnetic clamps. Shaped charges fired, blowing a hole through the armor. Atmosphere rushed out, creating a brief wind. Then the Marines were through, moving into the enemy ship. Krell soldiers were waiting. They were enormous, wearing heavy armor and carrying plasma rifles. They opened fire and the corridor lit up with energy bolts. 2 Marines went down immediately, their armor melted through. Torres didn't hesitate. She fired her rifle in short, controlled bursts while moving forward. The Krell were trained to stand and fight. Humans had learned to shoot while moving. Torres's rounds found gaps in the enemy armor. 1 Krell went down. Then another. Her squad spread out, using the corridor's corners and doorways for cover. They threw grenades that filled the space with shrapnel. Krell soldiers who had never faced close combat warfare fell in confusion. "Keep pushing," Torres ordered. "We need to reach their reactor control." The Marines fought through 3 more groups of Krell defenders. The close quarters worked to the humans' advantage. The Krell couldn't bring their numbers to bear in the narrow corridors. And when it came down to hand-to-hand combat, the humans' lower center of gravity and faster reflexes made the difference. Torres reached the reactor control room and planted demolition charges on the main console. "Everyone out." 30 seconds. The squad retreated, fighting their way back to the boarding pod. They launched just as the charges detonated. The Krell cruiser's reactor went critical, and the entire ship tore itself apart from the inside. Back on the Indomitable's bridge, Vasquez watched another Krell ship die. Her fleet was down to 3 functional vessels, but they had destroyed or disabled 11 enemy ships. The odds were still terrible, but they were holding the line. "Captain," Park said urgently, "the Centauri convoy has reached the jump point. They're escaping to FTL." Vasquez felt relief wash over her. They had done it. 8,000 civilians were going to live. Now came the hard part, surviving long enough to escape themselves. Lord Vraxis stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His fleet was supposed to be overwhelming. Instead, these humans had fought them to a standstill. More than that, they had actually pushed the Krell back. He finally understood. The stories about Deathworlders weren't exaggerations. Humans came from a world that tried to kill them every day. They had evolved to survive impossible odds. They didn't know how to give up. "All ships," Vraxis ordered reluctantly. "Focus fire on the human flagship. If we can kill their leader, they might break." Every Krell ship turned its weapons toward the Indomitable. Vasquez saw it coming. "Well," she said quietly to Zhao, "this is going to hurt." The combined firepower of 7 Krell warships struck the Indomitable in a concentrated barrage. Plasma bolts hammered the shields until they collapsed in a cascade of failing energy. Then the fire hit the armor. Metal melted and boiled away. Entire sections of the hull were torn open to space. Captain Vasquez was thrown from her chair as the ship lurched. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing the bridge in red. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. She could hear the screaming of stressed metal and the roar of escaping atmosphere somewhere below them. "Damage report," she shouted over the noise. Commander Zhao pulled himself up from the floor, blood running from a cut on his forehead. "Shields gone. Hull breaches on decks 2 through 6. We've lost main power, running on backup systems. Rail guns offline. We have 1 working missile tube in our point defense." Vasquez looked at the main screen. It was cracked but still functional. The Krell ships were moving in for the kill, spreading out to surround the crippled human flagship. The 2 remaining human ships, both heavily damaged themselves, were trying to reach the Indomitable, but were being cut off. She had minutes at best. Maybe less. "Engineering, what's our engine status?" The chief engineer's voice came through, distorted by static. "Captain, the FTL drive is completely down. Sublight engines are at 30%. But here's the thing. I've been looking at our reactor output. It's not stable. The Krell fire damaged the containment system. If we push the engines too hard, we'll overload." An idea formed in Vasquez's mind. A terrible, desperate idea, the kind that only made sense when you were out of options. "How much power can we get from the reactor before it goes critical?" There was a pause. "Captain, if you're thinking what I think you're thinking, how much power?" Enough to push us to .7 light speed for about 40 seconds. Then the whole ship becomes a bomb. A very, very big bomb. Vasquez looked at the tactical display. The Krell flagship was 3,000 kilometers away, positioned perfectly to finish off the Indomitable. Lord Vraxis probably wanted to personally oversee the destruction of the human captain who had humiliated him. She opened a channel to the entire ship. All hands, this is the captain. We're done running. We're done defending. I need everyone to evacuate to the portside escape pods immediately. That's an order. You have 3 minutes. Zhao stared at her. Helena, what are you doing? Giving Vraxis a lesson he won't forget. I'm going to ram that bastard's flagship at .7 light speed. That's insane. You'll be killed. Not if I launch before impact. But someone needs to pilot the ship until the last second. Then I'm staying with you. Vasquez shook her head. No, you're taking command of the fleet. Get our people home, Zhao. Around the bridge, the crew was evacuating. Lieutenant Park stopped at the door and looked back. Captain, it's been an honor. The honor was mine, Park. Now go. When the bridge was empty except for Vasquez and Zhao, the commander spoke quietly. They'll court-martial you for this. If you survive, let them. Those Centauri families are safe. That's worth it. Zhao nodded, then held out his hand. Vasquez shook it. Then he left, and she was alone on the bridge of her dying ship. She sat back in the captain's chair and put her hands on the controls. The Indomitable responded slowly, its damaged engines struggling. But it began to move, turning toward the Krell flagship. On Lord Vraxis's bridge, one of his officers noticed the movement. My lord, the human flagship is moving. It's turning toward us. Finally showing sense and trying to escape, Vraxis said. Don't let it. All ships maintain fire. But the human ship wasn't running away. It was accelerating. Straight at them. What are they doing? The officer asked, confused. Vraxis suddenly understood. His eyes widened. Engines full reverse. Get us away from that ship now! But Krell vessels were massive and slow. They were built for power, not maneuverability. The flagship began to turn, but it was like trying to steer a mountain. On the Indomitable, Vasquez watched her speed climb. 0.3 light speed, 0.5. The reactor was screaming, pushing itself beyond every safety limit. Alarms blared warnings she ignored. The hull was vibrating so hard her teeth rattled. 0.6 light speed. The Krell flagship was getting larger on her screen. She could see it desperately trying to maneuver away. Too slow, much too slow. She had maybe 10 seconds left before the reactor went critical. Time to go. Vasquez ran from the bridge. Her legs felt heavy like she was moving through water. Adrenaline made everything sharp and clear. She counted the seconds in her head as she sprinted through corridors. 5 seconds. She reached the emergency escape pod. The last one left on the ship. 3 seconds. She threw herself inside and slammed the door. 1 second. She hit the launch button. The pod fired away from the Indomitable with massive acceleration. The force crushed Vasquez into her seat. Her vision went gray at the edges. She fought to stay conscious. Behind her, the Indomitable completed its charge. At 0.7 light speed, it struck the Krell flagship just forward of the main bridge. The impact released energy equivalent to a dozen nuclear weapons. The flagship simply ceased to exist, vaporized instantly. The Indomitable's reactor went critical a microsecond later, adding to the explosion. The shockwave caught 3 other Krell warships that had been too close. They were torn apart by debris and radiation. The remaining Krell ships scattered, their formation completely broken. Lord Vraxis had been standing on his bridge one moment. The next moment there was nothing. No time to think. No time to feel. Just instant death as the universe ended in light and fire. The escape pod tumbled through space. Inside, Vasquez slowly regained consciousness. Her whole body hurt. She tasted blood. But she was alive. She activated the pod's emergency beacon and looked out the small window. Where the Krell flagship had been, there was only an expanding cloud of superheated gas and debris. The remaining Krell ships were retreating, jumping to FTL as fast as they could. They had lost their commander, their flagship, and their will to fight. One of the human destroyers located Vasquez's pod within an hour and brought her aboard. Commander Zhao was waiting in the hangar bay. When Vasquez climbed out of the pod, her legs barely working, he saluted. Mission accomplished, Captain. The Centauri convoy is safe. The Krell fleet is routed, and somehow you're alive. Vasquez returned the salute, then let herself lean against the pod. She was so tired. Casualties? 147 dead, 300 wounded. We lost the indomitable, the vigilant, and the stalwart. But we saved 8,000 civilians. The numbers hit her hard. 147 of her people would never go home. But 8,000 civilians would. The math was brutal, but it was the only math that mattered. Get me a communication link to Earth Command, she said. I need to report that I deliberately disobeyed orders, started an unauthorized battle, destroyed a major alien fleet, and committed an act of war against the Krell Dominion. They're going to be angry, Zhao observed. Let them be angry. I did the right thing. The journey back to Earth took 3 days. During that time, news of the battle spread across the galaxy. The Centauri Republic broadcast the story everywhere, praising the humans who had saved their people. Other species began to pay attention. These humans, these Deathworlders, had done what the Galactic Council would never do. They had stood up to bullies and protected the weak. When the fleet finally reached Earth, Vasquez was immediately placed under arrest. She was confined to quarters pending an official inquiry. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Galactic ambassadors testified about the violation of Council law. Earth's politicians worried about the diplomatic consequences. Military lawyers argued over orders and authority. Through it all, Vasquez said the same thing. I would do it again. Every time. That's what being human means. The Centauri sent their entire surviving convoy to Earth as witnesses. They filled the hearing room, 8,000 voices speaking as one. They told their story. They showed images of their children who would have died. They thanked the humans who had saved them. In the end, the court cleared Vasquez of all charges. Public pressure from both humans and grateful aliens made any other verdict impossible. She was restored to full rank and command. But the Galactic Council was furious. They formally censured Earth. They threatened sanctions and isolation. Some species demanded humanity be expelled from the Council entirely. Earth's response was simple. We're not apologizing. If you won't protect the innocent, we will. 6 months after the battle, Earth had changed its approach to galactic politics. If the Council wouldn't protect vulnerable species, humanity would do it themselves. They established the Outer Rim Protection Fleet, a force that was officially independent but everyone knew was backed by Earth's military and resources. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of her new ship. She had insisted they name it Indomitable II, honoring the vessel and crew that had been lost. This new ship was larger and more powerful than the original, built with lessons learned from the battle against the Krell. Dozens of species had requested human protection. The smaller civilizations, the peaceful ones who had no way to defend themselves, they saw humanity differently now. Not as aggressive Deathworlders to be feared, but as fierce protectors willing to stand between them and danger. The Krell Dominion had tried to recover from their defeat. They sent 3 more fleets into the outer systems trying to reassert their control. Each time they ran into human ships. Each time they lost. Badly. Human tactics were simply superior. While other species had evolved on safe worlds and fought in traditional, almost ceremonial ways, humans had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other. They brought that terrible knowledge to space, and it was devastatingly effective. More importantly, humans didn't fight for conquest or glory. They fought to protect. That made them even more dangerous. A soldier fighting for his own life was dangerous enough. A soldier fighting to protect innocent lives was unstoppable. Lord Vraxis's replacement, General Thrak, learned this lesson the hard way. He led a massive raid on a human colony, thinking to take revenge for Vraxis's death. He brought 20 warships and 5,000 soldiers. He found a colony of only 8,000 humans. Most were civilians, farmers, engineers, teachers, but every adult human on that colony was armed. Every single one. They had been trained since childhood to handle weapons. It was part of their culture, something carried from Earth where danger was always present. Thrak's soldiers landed expecting an easy victory. Instead, they found themselves fighting a population that refused to surrender. Human civilians used hunting rifles against armored soldiers. They set traps in the forests. They fought from buildings and underground tunnels. The colony's small defense force, only 300 trained soldiers, coordinated the civilian resistance with brutal efficiency. They knew the terrain. They knew how to use it. The Krell had numbers, but the humans had home advantage and the will to fight to the last breath. When Earth's fleet arrived 2 days later, They found the Krell forces in full retreat. The colony had held. More than that, they had captured General Thrak alive. The Krell had lost 3,000 soldiers trying to conquer a civilian population. The trial of General Thrak became a galactic event. For the first time, a major war criminal was being prosecuted under human law. The proceedings were broadcast across the galaxy. Species everywhere watched as humans methodically presented evidence of Krell crimes: slavery, mass murder, torture. When the verdict came, it was unanimous: guilty on all counts. Thrak was sentenced to life imprisonment. The message was clear: prey on the weak and humanity would find you. Humanity would stop you. Humanity would make you face justice. The Krell Dominion's power began to crumble. Without the ability to raid and enslave, their economy collapsed. Internal conflicts tore them apart. Within a year, the Dominion had fragmented into a dozen smaller states, none strong enough to threaten anyone. Other criminal organizations took note. Pirates who had raided shipping lanes for decades suddenly found human warships waiting for them. Slavers discovered that grabbing civilians now meant facing Deathworlder Marines who would burn their ships down around them. One by one, the predators of the galaxy were being hunted to extinction. The Galactic Council watched all of this with mixed feelings. On one hand, the outer systems were more peaceful than they had been in centuries. Species that had lived in fear could now trade and grow without constant threat. On the other hand, humans had essentially ignored Council authority and done whatever they wanted. Ambassador Chen stood before the Council chambers, addressing the assembled representatives. She spoke calmly but firmly. "You call us aggressive. You say we're too violent, too dangerous. You're right. Humans are dangerous. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. We evolved as persistence hunters who could chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We survived ice ages and droughts and predators that should have wiped us out. We learned to work together, to protect our families, to never give up no matter how bad things got." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of various alien ambassadors. "But here's what you don't understand about humans. We don't use that violence for conquest. We use it for protection. We're dangerous to protect those who can't protect themselves. Every human child is taught from birth that the strong have a duty to defend the weak. It's in our nature. It's who we are. We will not apologize for saving the Centauri convoy. We will not apologize for stopping the Krell raids. We will not apologize for bringing criminals to justice. If that means we're outcast from the Council, so be it. We'll do what's right, even if we have to do it alone." The Council chamber erupted in arguments. Some species agreed with Chen. Others demanded sanctions. It took hours for order to be restored. In the end, the Council reached a compromise. Humanity would be given a special status, protector species. They would have authority to intervene in cases of clear aggression against civilians, but only in the outer systems away from Council core worlds. It was a recognition that human methods, while brutal, were effective and necessary. Chen accepted the compromise, though she made it clear, if humans saw innocents in danger, they would intervene regardless of Council approval. On the bridge of Indomitable 2, Captain Vasquez received a new mission alert, a distress call from the Yllari system. A species she had never heard of was under attack by raiders. "Helm, how far?" she asked. 16 light years, Captain. We can be there in 30 minutes. Vasquez felt the familiar calm settle over her. This was what she was meant to do. This was what it meant to be human. Set course. Maximum speed. All hands to battle stations. She paused, then added, "And someone send a message to those raiders. Tell them the humans are coming. Tell them they picked the wrong prey." The Indomitable 2 jumped to FTL, leaving a streak of light behind it. In the Yllari system, the raiders received the human message. Most laughed. They had heard stories but didn't believe them. Humans were just another species, right? They would learn. They all learned eventually. Across the galaxy in 100 different systems, human ships patrolled, not conquering, not demanding tribute, just watching, protecting, ready to respond when the weak cried out for help. Earth's fleet had tripled in size. More ships were being built every day. Young humans volunteered in huge numbers, wanting to be part of something bigger than themselves, wanting to make a difference. Other species began to study human military tactics. Some tried to copy them, but it never quite worked. You couldn't teach the human mindset. You couldn't train someone to have the death world instinct that made humans fight harder when things got worse instead of giving up. The Centauri built a memorial on their homeworld. 8,000 names carved in stone representing the refugees who had been saved. At the center stood a statue of Captain Vasquez looking up at the stars. The inscription read, "When the galaxy turned away, humanity stood firm. When predators came hunting, the Deathworlders answered with fire. We will never forget." Dr. Kellen, who had been on the Indomitable during that first battle, gave a speech at the memorial's dedication. His voice was strong despite his usual Centauri timidness. Humans call their world Earth. They say it's a death world, the most dangerous classification. But I've learned something about humans. Yes, Earth made them strong. Yes, it made them dangerous. But it also made them compassionate. They know what it's like to struggle and suffer. They know what it means to face extinction. And because they know these things, they cannot stand by and watch others suffer. That's what makes them truly special. Not their weapons or tactics or physical abilities. Their empathy combined with their courage. In the decades that followed, the galaxy changed. The age of raiders and slavers slowly ended. Not because the Council passed laws, but because humanity enforced justice with railguns and nuclear fire. Peace came not through diplomacy alone, but through the credible threat that attacking the innocent meant facing the wrath of the Deathworlders. Captain Vasquez eventually retired after 20 more years of service. She had saved countless lives, fought in dozens of battles, and never once regretted her decision to disobey orders that day. At her retirement ceremony, representatives from 40 species attended to thank her personally. She gave a short speech as was expected. She kept it simple. "I'm not a hero. I'm just a human who did what any human would do. We saw people in danger and we helped. That's all. That's what humanity has always done. From the moment our ancestors first shared fire in a cave to keep each other warm, we protect each other. We protect those who can't protect themselves. That's what makes us human. That's what will always make us human." The Indomitable II continued to patrol the outer systems, now under a new captain, but everyone still called it Vasquez's ship. Her legacy lived on in every human vessel that jumped to FTL speed toward a distress call, in every Marine who fought to protect civilians, in every pilot who pushed their fighter past safe limits to save lives. The galaxy had learned a simple truth. You could be strong. You could be cruel. You could prey on the weak. But if you did, humanity would find you. Humanity would stop you. Humanity would make you answer for your crimes, because humans were Deathworlders, and they had brought the fire of their harsh world to the stars not to conquer, but to protect. And that made all the difference.